Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a case study today that is, well, it's pure systems architecture
Hmm.
because it takes a scenario that, has frustrated workers across the entire service industry and, frankly, any team environment and completely flips the script. This isn't about personality conflicts, not really. It's about broken blueprints and misaligned incentives.
That's our precise mission here. We have this extraordinary source material detailing a workplace conflict. It centers on a passionate service worker and, well, their difficult colleagues. But we are moving past the emotional complaint to examine the situation through the lens of the architect leader.
Right.
That's the individual who recognizes the flaw in the system itself and proposes a structural solution. And we're contrasting that with the mindset of the hero leader.
Ah, the hero leader. The
Yeah.
one who just jumps in to patch things up.
Exactly. Someone who merely compensates for the system's predictable failures again and again.
Okay, so the core conflict is immediately relatable,
Yeah.
right? You have an employee who truly cares about the overall customer experience
Mm.
deeply, but they are constantly reprimanded for interfering in other servers' areas. And why?
Well,
Because those colleagues have learned to ignore the low-value, high-effort tasks, the foundational stuff.
Hmm.
Water refills, clearing plates, fetching ice, providing napkins,
the basics.
the absolute basic, to focus exclusively on the big money. High commission sales, like upselling a premium bottle of tequila or a costly wine.
And this is the organizational disconnect that we really need to map out. The company's mission statement likely shouts about excellent service and customer
Well, of
experience.
course it does.
Yet the internal compensation mechanics, the way people actually get paid or rewarded, are encouraging the exact opposite behavior.
Which is,
Individualistic focus, selfish pursuit of commissions, and just a flat-out refusal to collaborate on basic service. Our listener, the person in this case study, is essentially being financially punished and socially ostracized for upholding the company's stated values. It's quite the paradox.
wow. So if you're listening right now and you've ever felt penalized for being the only person who, say, cleans up the shared break room mess or does the task nobody else wants, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning how to stop being the janitor of emotional failure
Hey, good term.
and start being the engineer of operational success, how to actually build something better. Okay, let's start with the symptom our listener describes. The frustration is intense. You can feel it.
Palpable?
They are running ragged, trying to ensure every client is served quickly, while their colleagues, well, they mock them.
Yeah.
The colleagues are essentially saying, "You're foolish. You're killing yourself carrying ice and water all night.
Eh.
Focus on selling bottles like the rest of us." That's the smart play, apparently. But if our listener stops doing that,
Service collapses.
right, the service quality plummets and the entire brand suffers. So they feel this heavy moral obligation, this weight to fill those operational gaps.
And that, right there, is the classic hero trap. The individual thinks the problem is their overreach or maybe their colleague's laziness. They personalize it,
But the architect leader steps back.
steps way back,
Yeah.
and identifies the brutal truth. The core problem is not individual ethics or motivation,
Yeah.
not fundamental.
It is the structure itself,
a system.
the system.
Precisely. We are dealing with a fundamentally broken system of incentives and assignment of responsibilities. It's baked in.
And management is allowing this.
Management, by allowing this intense commission-only focus to dominate the culture, actively rewards selfish individualistic behavior, what we call commission chasing,
Right.
hunting those big sales. And at the same time, it actively punishes the customer-centric collaborative behavior of our architect listener. The system is literally designed to create this conflict. It's an inevitable outcome.
Which means the typical management approach,
Yeah.
having a chat with the lazy servers, telling them to shape up that's doomed to fail
Yeah.
every single time.
Absolutely. The hero leader tries to manage individual people, right? Demanding they be nicer or more ethical or work harder. It's exhausting and ineffective. But the architect leader asks a different, much more strategic question.
Which
The essential question for the architect is this: what structural change or what system can we propose that makes excellent collaborative service more profitable for every single employee
more profitable.
than ignoring the client and solely chasing individual sales?
See the shift.
Huge shift. You're moving it from feelings and fairness to dollars and cents.
Exactly. This shifts the focus instantly from moral judgment, which puts managers on the defensive, to strategic business design. Now the solution appeals to the manager's bottom line, their KPIs, not just their their sense of what's right.
That is a critical reframing. Okay, let's dive deeper then into the specific damage this broken system is causing, operationally, humanly. We need to analyze this using the language of systems, right? Like the broken pillars of emotional salary and the operational waste the mood is being generated. Right. On the human side, the emotional impact. The first and probably most destroyed pillar here is justice. Our listener feels a profound sense of injustice. It's palpable.
How so?
Well, they are being penalized socially, energetically, maybe even financially if tips depend on perception for upholding quality, for doing the right thing according to the company's own supposed standards. Meanwhile, negligence, which often frees up time to chase those high commissions, is tolerated, or maybe even tacitly rewarded if those commissions are the only thing management tracks.
Wow.
And when the pillar of justice collapses like that, trust goes right out the window with it.
I guess when trust disappears, community is next.
Immediately, the community and belonging pillar just crumbles. The system actively rewards isolation, not team effort. It creates these invisible walls, these silos where everyone fights over my clients, my section, and ignores your clients, or worse, ignores the shared space, the shared responsibility.
So it's not really a team.
Not at all. There is no real team structure. It's just a group of competing individuals basically playing the sales lottery every shift.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And the third pillar damaged here is profound. Purpose and transcendence.
Explain that one.
The individual's high purpose, this person wants to give truly excellent service, that's their driver, it clashes violently with the frustrating daily operational reality they face. This tension, this gap between their personal values and the workplace reality leads to enormous frustration, moral injury. Eventually, burnout is almost certain.
And their talent is wasted.
Completely. Their proactive talent, the very thing that could be a model for the team, instead becomes a source of interpersonal conflict and friction.
So the human cost is just massive. Burnout, injustice, fragmentation, loss of purpose. Okay, now let's translate that emotional damage into something maybe management understands better. Hard operational waste. Cold, hard costs.
Exactly. This is often the argument that gets traction. The operational waste? The mudas, in lean terminology, are tangible business costs. They hit the bottom line. And the most serious one highlighted in our source material here is the waiting waste, muda de espera. Clients are left waiting, and waiting, indefinitely sometimes, for basic services.
And this isn't just, oh, the customer is a bit annoyed. This has real financial consequences, right?
Oh, absolutely. Waiting waste isn't just subjective feeling. It directly blocks at least two critical business metrics.
Okay, what are they?
First, it reduces potential reorders. Think about it. A customer waiting 15 minutes just for water is probably not going to order that second cocktail or the dessert or the appetizer they were considering. The moment's gone. The impulse is lost.
Right, you lose the upsell opportunity.
You lose the upsell. And second, and this is critical in high-volume places, it slows table turnover massively.
Getting people in and out.
Exactly. If a party stays an extra 20, 30 minutes longer than necessary just because basic service items were delayed, waiting for the check, waiting for plates to be cleared, waiting for that water, that table is blocked, it's not generating the next revenue stream.
So you literally lose potential sales for that whole period.
You lose hours of potential profit per table, per night. All because maybe nobody could be bothered to bring a simple cup of ice quickly. It sounds small, but it adds up incredibly fast.
Wow. Okay, and that leads us straight to the next waste, I imagine. Defect waste.
Precisely. Muda de defectos. Every single instance of that delayed service, every forgotten napkin, every long wait for water. That's a defect in the service product. And these defect wastes, they kill your reputation and loyalty. The customer might still buy that expensive bottle of tequila, yeah.
But they remember the wait.
They remember waiting 10 minutes for a fork. And that memory ruins the overall quality score in their mind. It leads to lower overall tips, even for the person who made the big sale. It leads to negative online reviews, which everyone sees now.
Yeah, that's huge.
And reduced lifetime customer value. It affects the long-term health, the viability of the entire operation. These aren't small things.
And finally, the one that feels most poignant in this specific case, the unused talent waste. Muda de talento no utilizado.
This one is heartbreaking, really. The passion, the drive, the natural inclination toward system thinking that our listener clearly possesses, their ability to spot the systemic flaw and even imagine a solution, it's being actively suppressed, stifled.
Instead of using that talent.
Instead of harnessing it, utilizing this person to train others, maybe help improve processes, the system is forcing the architect into a corner, Either conform to low performance, just do your assigned bit and ignore everything else, or leave.
That's talent acquisition and retention failure rolled into one, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the diagnosis is crystal clear. A perverse incentive system is creating injustice, fragmentation, and massive operational costs. And those costs are centered around weighting and defects, all fueled by unused talent. It's a mess.
Okay, so the architect has the diagnosis. They see the broken system clearly. The immediate next step, crucially, isn't complaining louder.
No, definitely not.
It's triage and a massive mindset shift. You have to transform your individual emotional complaint, "this is unfair," into a strategic, systemic business proposal. This is inefficient, and here's how to fix it.
That requires serious psychological distance. It's hard to do when you're in the thick of it.
I bet.
Absolutely. The architect must move from being the person experiencing the problem, feeling the frustration, to being the person solving the system. You essentially adopt the perspective of a highly paid external consultant. You move from defense to proactive strategy.
Okay. And the immediate action suggested in the sources is key, right? It's about managing the manager's inevitable defensiveness.
Yeah.
You don't just walk in and say, "My colleagues are lazy and your system sucks."
No, that usually doesn't end well.
So what is the suggested approach? How do you even get that meeting?
You request a short meeting, 15 minutes max. And you explicitly frame the issue not as a complaint about people, but as an efficiency problem, a client experience problem. The suggested script, it's like a tactical maneuver we could call organizational aikido, using their energy.
IKEA. Okay. How does it work?
You start by validating the manager's perspective, their existing reality, something like, "I understand the vital need to respect assigned service areas for accountability." That makes sense. You show you get their world.
Okay, start with agreement.
Yes, but then you pivot gently. My concern is that the current approach, while clear on paper, seems to be causing some client experience gaps, especially when small requests aren't handled instantly by whoever is nearby.
Framing it as an approach problem, not a people problem.
Exactly. And then the proposal hook. I've actually been thinking about this, and I've developed a preliminary idea for maybe a team system, a protocol, that I believe could eliminate that client waiting, increase our overall service speed, and, crucially,
Comes.
increase the total tips and commissions for everyone on the team.
Boom. You've completely shifted the conversation from discipline and complaints to efficiency and profit.
You've bypassed the manager's likely emotional defense shield and appealed directly to the business metrics they almost certainly care about, or should care about.
Okay, brilliant. Now let's detail the first major proposal, the architectural blueprint itself. The outline calls it P&I Serve V01, but let's call it something like the Collaborative Service Protocol, CSP, for clarity.
Good idea. CSP works. So the CSP is designed to formalize collective action, to make teamwork the default, not the exception. It starts by defining the trigger.
The trigger for action.
Yes. The trigger is simply any customer request, regardless of where they are seated or whose section it technically is. It has to be universal to eliminate that, "sorry, not my table" excuse right from the start.
Okay, any request anywhere, got it.
Yeah.
And the next part tackles the silo mentality directly by defining the owner.
Right. Who is responsible? The designated owner or the responsible party for initiating action is always the closest team member. We designate them as the first responder.
Closest person takes point.
That's the foundational rule. It eliminates confusion, eliminates hesitation, and forces immediate action. You don't need to waste time figuring out whose section it is just to acknowledge a customer needing something.
Okay, but the CSP needs teeth, right? It can't just be a suggestion. It requires a quantifiable metric, something that demands speed. This is where the minimum operational performance MOPs come in, I assume.
This is absolutely the most crucial, non-negotiable detail of the entire system design. The MOP establishes a strict time limit, a standard.
And that is,
No customer request, regardless of its perceived value, water or wine, can go unattended for more than 90 seconds.
90 seconds. Wow, that's fast.
It has to be. This metric is specifically engineered to attack that waiting waste we talked about. If a server is tied up selling a bottle or handling a complex order, someone else must acknowledge that waiting client and begin the initial triage within that 90-second window. No exceptions.
That 90-second rule is powerful. It forces prioritization and creates a sense of collective ownership over the speed of service, not just the task itself.
Precisely.
But let's be realistic. This is where I can see the pushback. The high commission sellers are still going to worry, right?
Yeah.
If I stop to get water for someone else, I might lose my chance to sell that expensive bottle at my own table.
Yeah.
How does the CSP manage that critical transition? between a low-value request like ice and a high-value one like tequila.
That's managed very carefully through the decision flow within the protocol. It differentiates based on request type.
How so?
Requests for basics, water, ice, silverware, condiments, napkins, they fall under a Zona Libre Primera Ayuda classification. Let's call it free zone, first aid.
Okay.
Whoever is closest, the first responder, just handles it completely, start to finish, quick, easy, done, no handoff needed.
Right, but big-ticket items.
However, if the customer's request is clearly for a high commission item or requires detailed menu knowledge like ordering that bottle or asking about entrees, the first responder doesn't take the order. Instead, they facilitate the warm handover.
Warm handover. Okay, explain that. I still see a potential failure point here. If I'm the first responder and I see a customer asking for an expensive bottle, why would I bother finding the assigned server? Why wouldn't I just take the commission for myself? That seems like a natural temptation, violating the original assignment.
Ah, a valid concern. And the system is designed specifically to preempt that exact conflict. The warm handover protocol specifies that the first responder's role is purely acknowledgement and facilitation, not sales execution.
So what do?
They provide immediate acknowledgement. Absolutely, let me get someone right over to help you with that bottle selection, ensuring the customer feels heard instantly, beating that 90-second MOP. Then they immediately locate the assigned colleague, and they perform a courteous professional introduction right at the table. Sir, Madam, my colleague name is the expert on our wine list and will take excellent care of your order now. They ensure the customer feel attended to, and they smoothly transfer ownership back to the designated commission earner.
Okay, so that protects the original commission assignment. It prevents, sort of, commission theft.
Yes.
But it still doesn't really reward the first responder for doing that initial triage or for handling all those basic free zone tasks for other people's tables. Why should the assigned server be happy that someone else is handling their water refills if they get zero benefit from it? The incentive still feels misaligned. Something's missing.
You've hit the nail on the head. That brings us to the most radical and arguably the most necessary structural change proposed by the architect.
The Contingency Compensation Protocol.
The CP.
Okay, CCP. What is it?
The CCP is the true agent of change in this whole system. It mandates some form of tip pooling or shared tips.
Tip pooling. That's often controversial. Explain why this is the necessary change agent here, and crucially, how it needs to be structured to actually be perceived as fair, not just communism.
Right. It has to be structured smartly. But the core reason it's necessary is that the CCP, specifically the tip pooling element, aligns every single incentive in the system toward collective success. When a significant percentage, or maybe even the totality, depending on the model of tips and commissions, are pooled and shared, suddenly the high commission seller has a direct personal financial interest in ensuring that all those basic service requests are handled quickly and efficiently by any available team member.
Because, help me connect the dots.
Because customers who get fast, seamless service for everything, the water, the napkins, and the expensive bottle, are generally happier customers overall.
And happier customers leave a better overall tip.
Exactly. A bigger tip that goes into the shared pool. And that pool benefits everyone, including the person who sold the bottle.
So the individual server is no longer operating in that stressful lottery mindset, man, I hope I sell a big bottle tonight or I'm sunk, but shifts to a collective investment mindset.
Precisely. The thinking becomes, if we all work together to guarantee this seamless sub-90-second service for every single guest interaction, the total pot increases significantly for everyone. It changes the game from zero-sum competition to collaborative growth.
Okay, but fairness is key. How is the distribution calculated to prevent resentment? You can't just split it evenly if one person is selling way more high-value items, right? That wouldn't feel just.
Absolutely not. A simple even split would likely fail. To maintain that crucial pillar of justice and, frankly, technical balance, the CCP calculation must be nuanced. It needs weighting.
How would that work? Give me an example.
A fair distribution model often assigns different weights or uses different mechanisms. For instance, maybe high commission sales contribute, say, 70% of their commission value directly to the individual seller who made the sale.
So they still get the primary reward for their skill.
Correct. But maybe the remaining 30% goes immediately into the shared tip pool for the shift. And then general pooled tips, the ones left on credit card slips or cash left for the team, might be distributed based on hours worked during that shift. Or maybe points assigned for completing certain support tasks.
Okay, so it's blended.
It's blended. This ensures the commission-focused individual still receives a greater personal reward for their specific sales expertise, but they also benefit directly from and are incentivized to support the rapid collaborative service structure that actually makes those high sales possible and more pleasant for the customer in the first place.
You've essentially created a win-win system, or at least a system where everyone's incentives point in the same direction. Excellent overall service.
That's the goal of the architectural design.
Okay, so the proposal now includes clear key performance indicators,
Yeah.
KPIs, to measure success, measuring the emotional side, like maybe surveys on perceived justice, community belonging, and definitely the hard business side, reduction in waiting waste, average response time, reduction in defect waste complaints, and crucially, an increase in total average tip and commission size per shift or per customer.
Exactly. The system is designed to sell itself based on measurable, ideally undeniable results. Data, not just feelings.
Okay, but architects know better than to expect smooth sailing. Resistance is almost guaranteed, right?
Oh, absolutely. Systems have inertia. People resist change.
So what happens when the system fights back? Let's imagine the manager hears this perfectly logical, potentially profitable collaborative service protocol and panics, rejects it flat out, uses those classic lines, "Don't cause problems, that's not how we do things here, things have always been done this way." And let's push it to the worst case scenario from the outline. The manager actually gets defensive and suspends the architect for daring to challenge the status quo. Now what?
This is the critical juncture. This is the moment where most change agents fail because they react emotionally. They get angry, defensive, maybe they quit in a huff.
Understandably.
Understandably, yes. But the suspension, seen through the architect lens, isn't personal malice, necessarily. It's the organizational immune system attacking what it perceives as a threat, a foreign body. The advanced architect knows this rejection probably isn't about the logic of their proposal. It's often about the manager operating with an obsolete mental model.
Explain that. What's the obsolete mental model here?
The manager likely got promoted because they were an excellent hero leader in the past, maybe when the team was smaller, 4 or 5 people perhaps. Their personal oversight, their ability to jump in and cover all the gaps themselves, it worked back then. They were the star.
But the team grew. The operation got bigger.
Exactly. Their leadership style hasn't scaled with the complexity. Now they're managing a large, complex team, maybe across different zones, and their refusal to implement a formal protocol like the CSP demonstrates their own broken pillar, a fundamental lack of humility and self-awareness.
They can't admit their old way doesn't work anymore.
Often, yes, they can't admit their old intuitive system is inadequate for the current reality. And they perceive the CSP proposal not as help, but as a personal criticism of their leadership, of their history, which triggers that defensive, panicked reaction like a suspension, "Stop making me look bad," essentially.
Wow. Okay. So how does the architect respond to being personally punished, suspended, for trying to save the business money and improve service? Not with resignation, the outline says, but with strategic finesse, the Aikido move.
Exactly. The Aikido move is a psychological disarming maneuver. You use the opponent's own momentum in this case, the manager's rigidity and defensiveness against them, or rather to expose the flaw in their position.
How does that work in practice after being suspended?
The first step, immediately following the suspension, perhaps in the meeting where it happens or shortly after, is to disarm the defense. You need to lower their guard.
How?
You apologize. But critically, you apologize for the method or timing of your proposal, not for the content or the observation itself. You might say something like, "My sincere apologies. My intention was only to help improve the client experience, and I clearly didn't use the correct channel or perhaps the right format to bring up my concerns. I understand and I overstepped. I promise absolute obedience to the current rules as you've laid them out."
That sounds submissive.
It sounds submissive, but it's strategically de-escalating. It calms their fear of mutiny, reassures them you're not trying to undermine them, and reestablishes your apparent loyalty. You're taking the personal attack vector away from them.
Okay, so you apologize for the how, not the what. That sets up the critical pivot, doesn't it? You promise obedience, but then you subtly highlight the impossible nature of that obedience under the current broken system.
Exactly. Now that their defenses are lowered, you expose the systemic flaw, and you do it using a seemingly innocent, purely procedural question. You frame it as needing clarification to follow their rules perfectly.
What kind of question?
You ask something like this: "Okay, manager, to ensure I follow your instructions perfectly from now on, focusing exclusively on my assigned area and not interfering elsewhere, could you please clarify something for me?"
Setting it up.
If a customer who is clearly not in my assigned section flags me down directly, maybe they're waving frantically because they've been waiting ages for, say, a simple water refill, and I am following your strict rule to ignore all other areas, what is the official written protocol you want me to follow in that specific situation?
Ooh, the power of that question. It forces the manager right onto the horns of a dilemma.
Precisely. Because it's highly likely no such official written protocol exists that says ignore a suffering customer. The manager is simultaneously demanding strict adherence to siloed rules and implicitly demanding the server somehow handle situations where those rules cause obvious client suffering and business damage.
They have to confront the void, the lack of a real plan.
By asking this simple procedural question, the architect transfers the responsibility, the ownership, for the inevitable operational failure, the guaranteed client dissatisfaction that will happen under the manager's rigid rules back onto the manager. The manager is now forced to choose. Either officially endorse terrible service by saying, yes, ignore them completely, which is probably untenable, or finally admit that a protocol, some kind of system like the CSP, must be formalized to protect the business. The manager now owns the problem they refused to address initially.
That's brilliant. But what if the manager still digs in, rejects the PNI idea again, and maybe says, just use your common sense, but still demands strict adherence to the old rules? Where does the architect go then?
If the direct approach and the Aikido question fail, the architect must move to phase 2. This is the long game, becoming a silent data collector.
Okay, explain that.
The new strategy is this. Apply the manager's broken rules rigorously. Do exactly as you're told. Stick to your section only, but you document everything meticulously.
So you follow the flawed rules, but you track the consequences.
Exactly. This is the crucial shift from emotional complaints or opinions, service is bad, to gathering cold, hard, irrefutable evidence. The architect creates a simple, unbiased data registry or log, focusing only on the failures created by the absence of the proposed CSP.
What kind of data points would they track?
Just the facts, date, time of incident, specific customer request, Sergey needed ice, asked for check, estimated time until request was attended by the correct assigned server, or if it never was. And crucially, my action taken, for example, followed manager's directive, informed customer their server would assist, or redirected customer to assigned server name. No emotion, just observation.
They're basically quantifying the waiting waste and the defect waste in real time, generated by the manager's own preferred system.
Precisely. After just 2 or 3 weeks of this diligent silent tracking, the architect doesn't go back to the manager with opinions or feelings. They don't say, see, I told you service was bad.
What do they do?
They present quantified data. Manager, just wanted to share some observations from the past 2 weeks while strictly following the assigned area protocol you requested. I documented 25 incidents where clients in adjacent sections waited more than 5 minutes for a basic service like water or condiments. This resulted in 2 recorded customer complaints directly mentioning wait times and one party walking out before ordering entrees.
Wow. Data changes the entire conversation. It shifts it from, I feel this way, to, this is costing us.
Absolutely. Data depersonalizes the conflict and focuses on business impact. So, armed with this data, the architect might attempt a V2.0 proposal. But this time, it's much smaller, much safer. It doesn't try to implement the full CSP or tip pooling yet.
What does it propose?
It proposes a highly focused, small-scale, safe pilot program, maybe focused only on implementing the first responder rule just for basic services, the free zone first aid part of the CSP, within, say, just 2 adjacent sections for 1 week.
A tiny experiment.
Tiny and crucially non-threatening. The pitch is strategic. Manager, based on the wait time data we're seeing, perhaps we could try this one simple change, just having the closest person grab water or napkins for 1 week, only in sections 3 and 4, and we will measure only the KPI you seem to care about most. Reduce customer complaints and negative online reviews for those sections compared to the others.
That is clever. You're making it easy to say yes, minimizing the perceived risk, and focusing on their metric of success.
Exactly. The genius of this long game strategy is that it forces the system to essentially sell itself. If this small pilot, this tiny bit of structured collaboration, demonstrably reduces complaints and speeds up basic service, the team members involved see it, feel it, maybe even get slightly better tips because of it, and the manager sees the data. They are all forced to confront the empirical evidence. The next logical step may be expanding the pilot, maybe finally considering the tip pooling system to sustain the improvement, becomes much harder to refuse. You don't fight the system head on, you make its dysfunction so painfully numerically visible that the system eventually collapses under the weight of its own inefficiency.
Okay, this brings us to the ultimate and maybe the hardest diagnosis for the architect. What if they do all this? They present the logical CSP, they use the Aikido move, they gather the irrefutable data, they propose the safe pilot. And the manager sees it. They understand the logic, they see the data. But they still lack the courage, maybe the political capital, maybe just the sheer will to enforce the change.
Yeah.
And maybe worse, what if the colleagues themselves actively reject the PNI or CSP? Maybe they actually prefer the chaotic, individualistic lottery of chasing big commissions over a fair, predictable shared system, even if the shared system might make everyone slightly better off overall. The culture just refuses to budge, even when presented with proof.
This is the final wall, the point of maximum resistance. The architect has done everything right strategically. They have validated beyond doubt that the core problem is not a lack of information or logic or even potential profit. The problem is simply a lack of will.
The system has chosen low performance.
Essentially, yes. The organization, or at least the dominant coalition within it, has decided it would rather maintain the dysfunctional, familiar status quo than innovate, collaborate, and truly excel. It's comfortable in its inefficiency. At this point, the architect must perform the final and perhaps the most brutal diagnosis, and this one is focused inward, on themselves.
And that diagnosis, according to the outline, centers on the personal cost, the negative return on investment, or RNI.
Precisely. We talk about ROI, return on investment in business, all the time. Did this machine pay for itself? Did this marketing campaign generate profit? Well, the architect must apply that same cold, hard logic to their own personal investment in this job. They are investing their highest talents, their systems thinking, their passion for service, their proactive energy into propping up, subsidizing a broken system that clearly does not appreciate, reward, or even want their input.
They're getting nothing back for their best work.
Worse than nothing. They are likely receiving active negativity, frustration, stress, conflict, maybe even damage to their reputation or career prospects within that company. They are receiving a profoundly negative return on that personal investment. And the greatest waste here, from the architect's perspective, is the emotional overprocessing waste. Think of the massive mental and emotional energy spent fighting this losing battle, compensating for others' failures, feeling frustrated, documenting incidents day after day after day. That RNI is unsustainable. It must be stopped.
So, if the RNI is clearly negative, the conclusion is unavoidable. The architect cannot stay. Staying means accepting that negative return indefinitely. They have to design a strategic exit.
Yes, staying is no longer a viable path for someone with an architect mindset.
So let's outline the 3 career paths available at this point, as the source material suggests.
Okay. The first option is the path of the martyr. The martyr stays. They internalize the painful fact that the culture won't change. They learn to tolerate the daily frustration. Maybe they lower their own standards to survive. They risk severe professional burnout, deep emotional injury, and career stagnation. It's a survival path, maybe, but it extracts a tremendous personal toll.
Brimmin. Okay, option 2, the path of the solitary hero, which the outline specifically says is not recommended. This involves what? Continuing the fight.
Yes, continuing to fight the unwinnable war, constantly compensating for everyone else's failures, constantly trying to push the rejected CSP, maybe escalating issues further up the chain, becoming the squeaky wheel.
And the outcome of that.
The outcome is almost always inevitable: expulsion. The system will eventually find a way to push you out. They'll label you a problem employee, not a team player, difficult, inadaptable, precisely because you keep exposing the failures that management and the dominant culture have chosen to ignore or accept. The hero is almost always eventually sacrificed or expelled by the very system they're trying to save.
So, martyr leads to burnout, hero leads to expulsion, which leaves the only sustainable, growth-oriented option.
The path of the architect. This path involves radical acceptance, accepting that this specific system, in its current state, with its current leadership and culture, cannot be repaired from their position. It's time to stop trying to renovate a condemned building.
And instead,
design a personal strategic exit plan to find a different organization, one whose foundation, whose culture, whose incentive systems already align better with their values and their architect mindset. You go find better soil to build on.
Okay, so deciding to leave is step 1. But the transition needs to be managed strategically too, right? It requires some short-term triage first. to stabilize things while they plan the exit.
Absolutely. You can't plan effectively if you're still emotionally drained every day. Short-term triage means strictly establishing or reestablishing emotional and professional boundaries immediately.
What does that look like practically?
You go back to performing only your rigorously defined duties, nothing more. You stop volunteering for shared tasks. You stop covering for others. You stop running ragged. And crucially, when asked for help by a client clearly outside your zone, you professionally, politely, but firmly redirect them using the manager's own rules as your shield. I would absolutely love to assist you myself, but to ensure you receive the proper attention from the person managing this area, the person in charge of your table is my colleague name. I will notify them immediately of your need,
So you're adhering strictly to the rules the manager demanded.
which protects you.
Protects the architect from further conflict and emotional drain? Yes, but it also does something else. What's that?
It forces the true operational failures, the ones the architect was previously patching up, to surface immediately and visibly. The manager, and maybe even the colleagues, now have to deal directly with the consequences of the broken system they refuse to fix. The pain becomes theirs, not just the architect's.
Okay, so triage is about emotional protection and boundary setting. While they're in that more stable state, the focus shifts to the most important long-term action.
The CV transformation. Preparing for the job search. And this is critical. The architect does not list their previous job duties as tasks performed. Served customers, took orders, refilled water. That's hero language.
So what do they list? How do they frame it?
They list achievements as a systems architect, even if those systems weren't fully adopted. They translate their actions into the language of process improvement and business results.
Give me an example. Instead of refilled water and served customers.
The CV bullet point now reads something like, identified critical systemic flaw in service delivery flow that resulted in significant client waiting waste and negatively impacted team morale.
Okay.
Designed and proposed a comprehensive collaborative service protocol, CSP, incorporating first responder triage and shared incentive structures.
Highlighting the design.
Successfully initiated and managed a data-driven pilot program for a component of the CSP, demonstrating a potential 40% reduction in average client response time for basic requests and achieving measurable improvement in customer satisfaction metrics within the pilot zone.
Wow, that sounds completely different. Same job, different framing.
You are shifting the entire narrative. From being a dutiful server hero to being a proactive process improvement specialist and a systems thinker, architect, you're showcasing the mindset and the capability, even if the old company couldn't utilize it.
And the final step is using this architect mindset in the strategic interview process when looking for new roles, right?
Absolutely. You don't just go looking for another job, you go looking for a better system to work within.
So when you're interviewing with potential future employers, you demonstrate you're an architect by asking strategic, system-level questions. You don't just ask about salary and vacation days. What are the key questions an architect should ask?
You should definitely ask things like, can you describe how your team's collective incentive systems operate? Is performance measured purely individually, or are there shared goals and rewards?
Probing the incentive structure.
Exactly. And how do you measure and encourage collaboration among your service teams or different departments? Are there formal processes in place?
Asking about collaboration mechanisms.
And maybe crucially, how does this organization typically respond to employees who identify process inefficiencies and propose systemic improvements? Is there a channel for that? Is it valued?
You're basically interviewing them to see if their system is healthy enough for an architect to thrive in.
Precisely. These questions signal that you understand organizational dynamics, you think strategically, and you are actively looking for a system, a culture, that already values and rewards the unique skill set you bring. You're selecting them as much as they're selecting you.
It's powerful. And that listener's original observation, the one mentioned in the source, that if service doesn't get fixed, the whole company risks losing a major contract or damaging its reputation. That's the final chilling validation, isn't it?
It really is.
The architects saw the systemic risk clearly. They saw the potential for the building to collapse structurally, and they attempted to act to shore up the foundation before the inevitable happened.
Their failure to change that specific system doesn't negate their insight or their talent at all. It simply means they diagnosed the problem correctly. The foundation itself was unsound. They need a better foundation to build upon.
So the wisest action, when facing that kind of certain collapse or stagnation,
Is recognizing that the foundation, the terrain, is fundamentally unstable or unwilling to support growth, and then acting decisively on your own behalf to preserve your talent, your energy, and your professional future by finding somewhere it will be valued. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive that was. We went all the way from the simple, everyday frustration of serving ice water
Yeah.
to designing a comprehensive collaborative service protocol,
Yeah.
analyzing organizational immune responses, calculating personal RNI. It's quite the journey. I think the critical lesson here, the thread running through it all, is that transition, moving from being a hero, the temporary exhausting Band-Aid on a fundamentally broken system, to becoming an architect, a builder of sustainable, profitable, and hopefully more humane structures.
Absolutely. And maybe the final thought on that is a great architect understands, sometimes painfully, that they should not insist on building their masterpiece in the middle of a swamp. It just won't hold. Sometimes the wisest, most strategic move is to recognize the fundamental failure of the terrain itself, acknowledge that reality without judgment, and then seek a foundation, seek an organization that actually aligns with your professional values and demands excellence. So our final recommendation, really, to the listener who provided this amazing case study is this. You have clearly demonstrated an exceptional, highly valuable systems thinking mentality that is rare and powerful. It is absolutely time to apply that same architectural skill set to designing your own career trajectory. Go find or build an organization that already values and rewards the way you think, because they are out there.
That's great advice. And remember, the knowledge you've gained, even from the struggle in this deep dive, is valuable currency. Even if you end up leaving that specific job, you now know the crucial difference between a broken system and simply bad people. You see the blueprint beneath the behavior.
Yes, and that understanding is power. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you look at your own situation. If your current organizational structure, day in and day out, consistently rewards compensation for failure, meaning it rewards the lucky lottery win of a big sale made despite generally poor service more than it rewards the systematic prevention of failure through collaboration and good process. What is the real long-term cost you are personally paying in terms of your emotional energy, your career growth, and your untapped potential just to stay put and keep trying to fix the unfixable?